Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm here today with the self-described twisted old wargamer, Dr. Luke Blaxill. Good evening.
Good evening, Simon.
How have you been?
Yeah, very well. Still recovering from the Derby stuff, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's like been just over a week and a bit. It's always a bit of an ordeal going up to Derby. I remember we had the heat last year and it was like 30 degrees the whole time. And this time I got stuck on the M1 for like an hour and a half, which wasn't very pleasant, but managed
Well,
to
I
survive.
had the place where I was staying, which was, superficially quite nice. Was like just had this massive rave outside it on both the Friday and the Saturday till about 2:30,
Oh,
and
okay.
and there were the windows didn't have proper curtains, and there was this parking lot with like a light going. It's not the most it
You
hasn't
didn't
been
get an invite
the
then?
most comfortable place in the world going to Derby. As you say, the last two occasions were last year, it was probably, I think, more than 30. It's like record breaking.
Yeah,
Crazy.
true. Yeah, it was like 35, wasn't it? Yeah, it was crazy. Um, So yeah, I mean, with these, I'll put some. The plan for today is to put some pictures of the games on. I think we had quite similar games, didn't we? Because we played each other at the tournament.
Well, that was a very similar game. It was the same
It
game.
was the
So
same game.
yes.
But I was just looking through the pictures, and we both played Empire, we both
Yeah.
played Orcs and Goblins, and we both played Wood Elves. So we had quite a
Yes.
similar experience.
Yes. And maybe some of the same players as well in there, I think, at least in
Yes,
one instance.
exactly. Yeah, so we can sort of compare our experiences. But I guess the theme that I want running through these podcasts is to do a kind of interview where I people get to know you, and viewers of this channel will already know you to a certain extent because they've seen you on other videos in the past. Um, but I guess you know if you could take us back a little bit to when you first got into the hobby, and
Yeah,
how you ended
definitely.
up going from that to
Yeah.
doing
So I
Warhammer
think,
tournaments.
like a lot of players who are still playing now, it started a long time ago, and then there was kind of a hiatus. So my very, very first experiences of any kind of wargaming at all were from a game called Battle Masters, which was the sort of mass combat equivalent of Hero Quest. Hero Quest was the more popular and more famous game. The Battle Masters had this like sort of big kind of combat mat, and it was like a game that you could put in a box and give to like a kid, and far less complicated than Warhammer. Fantastic game, actually, Battle Masters.
I never
I
heard of
really
it.
think up contemporaneously. It's really, really impressive. You have a lot of you have like orcs, and you have chaos warriors, and there's a chaos army which is sort of old school combined chaos, lots of different sort of races in there. Then you've got empire, who have got like a cannon and some halberdiers and some knights and that kind of thing, and you play it on a battle mat, and you draw cards to determine which units move. Really, really good. So I basically played that with my father, and then sort of wanted more. And I didn't live in a place where there was a Games Workshop store, and so I didn't get that direct exposure. But there was a shop up the road called Leisure Games, which was, in the very early history of GW, a quite significant independent stockist in North London. Some quite interesting things happened there in Leisure Games. Like very early White Dwarf magazines have got adverts for Leisure Games in it. So I got a bit of experience through that, and it was just through like talking to some of the power metal long haired dudes in there, which was of
Mm.
course what the kind of people who worked in these shops used to look like, back in the, this would have been in the
The
mid late
1920s.
in the in the 20s. They wouldn't have been that in the 20s. They would have been the more genteel kind of group there, although war games existed then in the 20s.
Okay,
Anyway, but war games exist way back into Victorian times for
sure.
simulated Napoleonic style ones. Anyway, so I for a birthday present, I was in Toys R Us, and as well as getting some Lego and this kind of thing, there was like a games section, and there was Warhammer, the fourth edition box, which had elves and goblins in. And I don't know why I chose that. I might have chosen Hero Quest or some other kind of game that was contemporaneous then, but I picked Warhammer. And then it was this attempt to try and understand how on earth this complicated game could be played, because I was too young to really understand. So it sort of left dormant because I couldn't just work out. I didn't have the intellectual kind of CPU at that age to be able to play this game. So then eventually in secondary school, I had a friend who said, "Oh, what's that?" And we got sort of playing it. And this would have been about the age of maybe about 15. And by this time, it had become fifth ed. And but
Yeah.
fifth ed was similar to fourth ed, and so we played that a bit, and we played mainly by our own made up rules, not sticking to turn order and things, charging and magic and shooting all in different orders. I think a lot of people have got that, adolescent game playing experiences, so to speak. But then once sort of went on to college and stuff, this kind of slightly dropped off, and Sixth Ed had just come in, or had come in. I can't quite remember when I was in university, but I didn't play Warhammer then, and I played a few games of Sixth Ed with my regular opponent from school. I didn't like Sixth Ed as much. I didn't like the departure from overpowered characters, which I thought was quite fun. We made ridiculous armies in Fourth Ed. We played 6,000 points. He used to have 300 flagellants and 12 allied dwarf organ guns and this kind of nonsense, and like 7 manticores that all just, in those days, they could all just go off the table and fly into the sky. It was the most ridiculous games that you could literally imagine. But it did ultimately boil down to he cast Purple Sun through me and failed to roll the 3-up. He needed to kill me because everything used to die on a 3-up for Purple Sun in those days. And then I cast Purple Sun back at him. Both of us using, these automatic staffs, which gave you the equivalent of total power of irresistible force. And then, I know some things change, some things stay the same, so to speak. Maybe it's a bit like that. Anyway, then it was long hiatus. Didn't play for absolutely ages. And then GW blew up the old world. God knows how many years later, 15 years, maybe 18 years later, I'm not sure. And that sort of inspired me to want to get back into the hobby, mainly because I think in a subconscious way, and I've self-analyzed myself here, I wanted to be respected when I whinged. Because if I whinged about Age of Sigmar, people say, you don't play this game anymore, Luke. Why do you care? So then I kind of wanted to play it so I could legitimately whinge.
Okay.
But swiftly, that rather unpleasant motive became replaced by actually genuinely liking the game. And I just put a message on my Southeast London War Games Facebook group saying, hey, does anyone play Warhammer here? I'll play any edition you like. And, there was a guy there called Dan White, isn't around the scene now, but really nice guy who said, yeah, 8th Ed's the current edition. If you got, I had the book for it, Chaos book, let's play 2,500 points. And I made this very weird army list using actually with beastmen and demons and chaos all together, like what I remembered. And I brought that, and obviously it was a totally non-competitive kind of list. But very quickly I worked out that I just needed to 6 dice Purple Sun, and that gave me a bit of a chance. So I did, he did kind of kill me in the first game, but I still kind of mainly threw 6 dice in Purple Sun something. And then I played some games with him, and then some other guys at the club was still playing 8th Ed, even though it'd been dead for 2 years. And that's really kind of where it came from then. There was a big community of people like Mark Murfield, who did our London Legends tournament with us, who were playing 8th Ed at the club, and also some older guys as well who stopped quite soon after that. But they were playing then, and we were still, even 2 years after our world was dead, we had 16-man tournaments at Southeast London War Games. And so that allowed me to get into the game. And then Dan White took me along to one of the Triple Crowns, and that's sort of what started my interest in the kind of competitive kind of scene. And that's really, I guess, in a sense, takes us, right up to present day, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Warhammer Fantasy was your first Games Workshop game. Did you dabble with any other fantasy hobbies, or just fantasy?
Yes. Battle Masters was Games Workshop / MB, the popular game manufacturers. That's the technical answer. But I did play Mordheim at school. That was enjoyably. Also, I'm very interested in role-playing games, and including quite sort of, intimate, very deep 2-person role-playing games with just me and my sister. That's a, very strong creative relationship that I have had with her. And I adapted the Mordheim rules to kind of simulate stuff that happened in this imaginary world that we created. And so that also was quite a major part of my games playing experience, using the Mordheim rules, but completely making up other things to make kind of a homebrew composite system. Those were the main ones. The other GW games, I started playing Blood Bowl, but then only about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, when people in my club got into it. I played a little bit of Necromunda actually at university, one campaign with a Cawdor gang. That was actually really good. I think Necromunda is a really cool game, and I read a lot of fluff for that. I've never played a game with 40k. Was partly ideological, but now it's not ideological, because if someone played me at the old rules of 40k, which to me look really cool, the new version of 40k that I see being played at the club that interests me less, I have to admit,
Yeah,
apart from just wanting to understand what the most popular game is.
sure.
But I read the old edition 40k reports in White Dwarf and stuff and thought they looked really cool. But it's very surprising that I've not had much association with, you know, the grimdark universe of Unending War, apart from, I guess, through Necromunda, which is set in that broad kind of
Sure.
universe. So yeah.
And it's fair to say that you've always liked chaos the forces of chaos. Have you always played chaos in Warhammer?
That's a good question. So I started with orcs, mainly because I was always going to pick one of the armies out of the box, because, you know, I had 32 goblin spearmen and 32 goblin
Yeah.
archers, and that gives you a big head start. So I was either going to pick them or I was going to pick high elves. So I picked goblins, the first kit I ever bought. And I remember going into Leisure Games and literally just bawling my eyes out when I saw how expensive these were, because I had no idea. Because I sort of thought, oh, the base game cost them, I don't know, my relatives about £30, and it's got like 100 models in. So surely the extra models aren't going to be very much. But of course, no. So I brought Grom the Pouch of Misty Mountain in his chariot. That was the first ever thing I bought.
Oh wow.
And then mainly I just bought essentially just one blister of a lot of different units, which is, I think, what a lot of kids do with their pocket money rather than investing in stuff. I think by the end of my orc army, I had quite a large number of orcs then. I think there was a plastic black orc set, and black orcs were kind of quite good. So I had them, and I had a couple of wyverns as well, as like the slaughterer and the shaman on the wyvern. And so I had orcs. I then tried Skaven for a while, but again, not good on a limited budget in those days because they had one plastic set only, and all the other stuff you needed loads of guys.
Yeah.
I had a bit of undead as well at the beginning. And, you know, a friend of mine had Bretonia, and so we sort of cycled between the armies. But then my final army that I played as a kid was Chaos, which I deliberately picked because they were clearly the most broken army. And suddenly, from being smashed every time by my like utterly cheesy Empire player, suddenly then I had Chaos, and I had like a guy who had like, you know, 100 attacks on his own and stuff.
Yeah.
And then suddenly my one guy could actually kill that flagellant unit in a few turns. So then I became competitive again just because of how stupid Chaos were. Stupid.
Sure.
But then later, I got back into Chaos again. I think one of the reasons for that was because I saw some third ed models. Those weren't around when I was playing. This was the fourth ed era, and there weren't third ed stuff around. But I saw those models, especially on the combat cards. Those which I don't think I've mentioned this to you. You don't.
Yeah.
They were these just little like top trumps. There were 4 or 5 decks: dwarves, humans, chaos, and monsters. Chaos ones. There were some miniatures there that were just, to me, literally to die for, and in the monsters deck as well, particularly those 2 decks. And I wanted to kind of own these models, but never really had a sort of an excuse to do it. But then when I got back into the hobby, I realized that what I knew I wanted to do was collect a third ed chaos army and to try and paint it in that way that they painted then. Also, because I'd done, for my own amusement, some drawing comics and anime and stuff in the intervening years, and I quite enjoy kind of comic art and develop that kind of interest. I wanted to, in a way, put that style on 3D models. And that's, of course, what you can do if you paint in that era, in that style with a third ed chaos. It all looks a bit cartoony, big popping colors, black lining.
Yeah.
It's just a bit like kind of a high contrast kind of comic. And that was the real dope style that kind of always did it for me, even though it was kind of a bit before my time. But that made it even more appealing because there's that mysterious time when you look at older kids and think, oh, they're much cooler than me.
Yeah, true.
And so there was a little bit of a reach back there to imagined super cool kid in the 80s. And,
well, that's something that we have in common, a love for those 80s and 90s Citadel models. What I mean, in your own words, what do you think those models have that the modern day models don't?
Character would be the primary one. And I say character, I think that the reason why that is because when individual sculptors were sculpting, say, Chaos Champions or Dwarves or whatever it might be, they had an extremely large license to put whatever they really kind of wanted on the model without very much in the way of central direction. Also, because models then were designed, I think, so I think modern models are often designed with computer-assisted design software, and parts of some models are taken from others. Now, they did do that to some extent in the past, of course, as well, not with computers, but just with other forms of copying. I find that modern models, especially the plastic multi-part ones, look a lot more kind of homogenized. And there's much stronger kind of central line, I think, coming from Games Workshop on what they want particular models to look like. Whereas I think if Chaos particularly, where there were really no rules, there was no Tolkien there or anything even to sort of inspire them, sort of create guidelines. They went literally crazy. And with the Chaos champions of the past, you know, the Chaos Warriors, there were like 200 different sculpts. And quite frankly, they probably needed to make 10 or something, and that would have been fine. And you were only going to have one champion of Slanesh. I mean, he cost 500 points. Why did they make 20? Because, you know, they did. And because in those days, you know, Games Workshop wasn't really about making money. It was, you know, a bunch of, you know, power metal headed young men with long hair who didn't, you know, who just wanted to just light up the world. And I know that's a romanticized ideal, but, you know, the art and the miniature designers in that kind of slightly more primordial soup stage is more about people just expressing themselves and just wanting to go on crazy creative journeys. By the early 90s, some people had worked out that this could really make a lot of money, and some of the suits started to come into the top of the company. And from that moment, while GW still was in many respects very awesome, the real creative spark of brilliance that created some of those real crazy models from the realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness, and Lost and the Damned, that was, I think, to be found in that innocent kind of primordial soup, you know, before the real kind of coming of the age of commercialism. And I think that's really why I like us. I think you can see some of that essence of magic in some of the old orc sculpts and some of the old dwarf sculpts in a way. They're a little bit more Tolkien-y fantasy, although that's fine because that's cool too. But the Chaos stuff is right out there on some kind of acid trip, man. And that's why it really appeals to me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you entirely. The new models, and I'm not sort of hating on the new models, and in many ways you can say that they are objectively better sculpted models and they have more detail. And of course, plastic is objectively a better material to work with than metal. But the character that they have, I mean, people often say that they have a kind of goofy look to them, like the old dwarves, as you were saying, or the old orcs. They look a bit silly, they look a bit comic. But I just like how you can just see the facial expressions. You can sort of paint the faces easier, and yeah, character, I think, is, as you say, that's the word, isn't it?
I think it is. I mean, I think with Chaos, the Chaos in the 80s wasn't really so much goofy because that was actually kind of quite dark and disturbing. There was a cartoony aspect.
But they were kind of hunched, weren't they?
There are some. I think with orcs, there was always the feeling that orcs were a comedy army, and so there wasn't much serious. And dwarves weren't a comedy army exactly, but they were very, you know, very kind of, there was like merriness and camaraderie and all that kind of thing. Were very
and you had drunken ones and things like that.
Yeah, one with a pipe, one with some beer. You know, there was a very social aspect there. But a lot of the old dwarf sculpts that don't look like they're professional soldiers, I mean, things like what are they called? The Iron Breakers. They're clearly a more professional kind of soldier, whereas some of just the normal dwarf warriors, they're just you know, they're just dwarves, and all dwarves are just, you know, naturally they're good at fighting, you know, they're tough, all that sort of thing. And so, you know, they are just, you know, guys smoking pipes and doing sorts of other things, and they're happening to come to a battle. And that's something really charismatic about them. So there is so much character, I think, pulsing from these old models. And I also think that at the time those were being produced, there was just a much greater kind of sort of naivety about everything, that, you know, this wasn't a game with like a sort of a tournament scene. The company wasn't really trying to make money in the same way. There was, I think, much more of them sort of expressing a kind of fantasy world in that way. And I think that those models in their own little way, and while you and I perhaps are guilty slightly of projecting a sort of a kind of a rose-tinted retrospect, there's something of a beautiful naivety to those kind of models of that era. And, you know, I think that just speaks to certain people. I mean, younger chaps, when they, you know, look at them, they see models that they think are quite nice, and they think, oh, that's kind of cool, but they don't really, you know, it doesn't move them in that kind of way. And, you know,
I particularly like, I remember the catalogs, right? And you could leaf through these things, and it had all the different models, and they had names to all of them. Like each individual sculpt would have a dwarf name, like this is Snorri, this is Gobble, this is, and you think like, well, this is like the golden era of every model has its individual name. You know,
the demons were like that as well. They were called things like, you know, Vex Burbler and Glob Thrower and all of these kind of nonsensy things. You know, like the demonettes had like 10 kind of sexy names as well. I mean, that's just another way that character kind of came through. I also think that one thing that sort of happened was that I was interested in these old models sort of you know, like literally maybe in like, I don't know, like the early noughties, late 90s. And at that point, those models sort of weren't online. So the only way of finding out about them, they weren't produced and you couldn't find them on the internet because the internet was obviously super primitive then. But what you could do was you could find them in a physical catalog, and each Games Workshop had one of these physical catalogs where you could look to use the back order service from mail order.
Yeah.
And so the weird thing was that you go there and like look over these pages and see things like, what? There's an orc lead belcher? Like orcs have like an organ gun? And then look at things, what's this? A Jabberwocky? I mean, what's this nonsense?
Yeah.
I mean, and there were just so much crazy kind of stuff in there. But because it was sort of in this mysterious falling apart catalog, that gave it a sort of an allure, a mysterious otherworldliness that was I was deprived of because I wasn't quite old enough. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why I wanted to go back when I had the money and the stuff, and I could go back and find, right, that's actually this, and I'm going to actually now get them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have 8 Jabberwockies because I can.
And I remember in the 4th ed dwarf book, there's like quite a large catalogue at the back of the army book. And I remember thinking, there's no way I'll ever own all these dwarfs, right? And I'll have a handful of them. But then now, like, I'm older and I've got some of my own money. I don't have all of them. I've almost got all of them, you know? And it's like, wow, you can actually collect them. And
yeah, you can literally go. I mean, some people do that with Chaos Champions and Chaos Warriors. I have never really attempted to do that. And of course, nowadays, of course, some of the sculpts, for whatever reason, I'm not really sure why, are just quite common and come up a lot, and other ones really don't. And that's another hidden, if you really want to get into the geekiness of old collecting, that's another interesting part of that meta, that some of those individual models, you know, might be really like super rare ones, and others just, you know, for whatever reason were just more common. And so there's a little bit of that there, as well as that kind of Odyssey-like thing of wanting to kind of collect the whole kind of set. And there are all sorts of quirks and things. Like I've got some Juggernauts, got 4 of them. There's one Juggernaut head variation, which has got this kind of sort of metal jaw on the bottom. I've probably got through about 12 Juggernauts in my time, and I've never seen that one or seen it advertised anywhere. So there are these kind of things here, like an Odyssey for certain lead components. This is what happens when you go down the rabbit hole to this former time.
Oh yeah, exactly. Favorite Chaos God?
I think probably overall it would be Slaanesh, I think. Although I quite like all the Chaos Gods. I like Khorne a little bit less than the other Chaos Gods because I don't think GW ever quite nailed the fluff of Khorne that well, made him as interesting as that. Whereas Slaanesh, I think, was closest to like maybe some kind of like sort of BDSM or even punky kind of stuff, which was some interesting historical kind of callbacks. As a kid, I don't think I had much of a partisanship for the Chaos Gods. I probably just liked Khorne because it, you know, was the most broken of the marks back in there.
Sure, yeah.
Now, probably more so Slaanesh, I find quite interesting. But I think the Chaos Gods are all very cool thematic creations and are part of the IP that GW has created that genuinely are really, you know, really interesting.
Yeah. Favorite Chaos unit, do you think? Or was that a bit of a hard question?
It would depend slightly what we mean by a Chaos unit.
8th edition.
8th ed. Okay, so as a unit in 8th ed, I think probably the Hell Cannon I like. The reason I like the Hell Cannon is because it feels a bit chaotic and you have to take a test and otherwise it can go wrong and sort of kill you. I quite like that aspect fluff-wise, not competitive-wise. Sure. So I like the Hell Cannon. I like Gorroch, the special character, because he feels quite chaotic as well. In terms of like the lore and the kind of units, I don't know. I think I quite like some of the demons, to be honest, taking a broader chaos theme. I like the lore of the Great Unclean One, because the Great Unclean One, you know, he's mainly interested in just sitting there and just denouncing his opponents with a long-winded speech. He doesn't really get into fighting very much. He just mainly talks at his opponent. And I like the idea that Nurgle, you know, it's kind of quite humorous. That's sort of the point.
He does have the best name.
Yeah. And I mean, and so the other stuff, the other gods are all a bit more. I mean, Slaanesh is perverse. Khorne obviously is just about killing people, and Tzeentch has got his mysterious things that no one can understand. But Nurgle's just about sort of sitting there and just, you know, denouncing her enemies, which I kind of quite like as a sort of a theme. I think that's got some kind of cool, you know, cool fluff behind it. But fluff-wise, I quite like the fluff actually of some other armies that aren't necessarily
Okay.
chaos. I like the fluff of Skaven quite a lot, for
Oh
example.
yeah, yeah. But so you've also got a Bretonnian army, and it looks like Games Workshop's going to be releasing new models for Bretonia soon. Any plans to get some of those?
Okay, so and that's not because I don't think that the new models are good. I think that they're okay. I think the scale is a bit weird. That horsey, or that Paladin's riding, has been pumped full of growth hormones and steroids. Would look
Yeah.
like, an absolute loon if I stuck him in a unit of Knight of the Realm with his it's a bit like, Superman going for a walk amongst normal men. He's like 10 heads tall and all the normal guys are like 7 heads tall. That doesn't work for me. The scale is wrong.
But horses vary in size, don't they?
They do, and it's true that GW horses in the past are probably a little bit too pony-like. So this great stallion that's there might be a bit more realistic. But I think the point is that I'm not sure they'll mix and match that well, and that for me is a slight barrier against buying some of the new models. But more broadly, I think that the thing is really this: I have always liked owning models that other people don't have because they're old, and so therefore it would be it's a bit like, wearing, I don't know, flares or something in a time when flares aren't fashionable. So the last thing you do is probably, run to the shop and buy the latest fashion. So probably I'm very unlikely to deliberately seek out those modern models for that reason, because sort of part of my identity as a wargamer is, as basically a fuddy-duddy, and so I'd probably be more likely to go backwards into, like, I don't know, the time before slaughter bases than I probably would be to buy any current models.
Yeah. And so you've got your YouTube channel, where you've got battle reports that are very similar to mine, or similar style anyway, and you've got these kind of analysis of the old world rumors, which have been quite popular, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because, for every one person that watches 8th Ed content, there are going to be 10 that are interested in the old world. And so, there's been this slow drip of information they've given out, almost nothing considering it was 3.5 years ago now.
Exactly.
And people quite like to talk about it. And, in a sense, you have a lot of people who are interested in Warhammer who just remember previous editions, who are dialing into the old world stuff. And, in a sense, if I can sort of act as a bridge between them and what Warhammer, was like in its latest incarnation, i.e. 8th Ed, and maybe 8th Ed plus with modifications and tournament stuff, then I maybe can be a place they can go to the most easily to kind of sort of get back into Warhammer and to understand what it was like right at the end. Because a lot of people who watch my channel didn't play 8th Ed, they just played Warhammer goodness knows how long.
Oh, you think so? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And so I've quite liked, in a way, being able to just, talk about that kind of stuff, with that kind of audience in mind. And, it's also a bit weird because, I'm a historian by profession. And sometimes in history, you're often trying to work out stuff that you don't have very complete records of, like to try and understand what was the motive of this statesman for taking this particular political action. And you might not have ever said so. So sometimes you have to try and infer what we might have gained, what other people said, and in a sense, working out what this new game is going to be like is a little bit like that. It's a bit like trying to interpret smoke signals. And so I quite enjoy that. Although, to be honest, the main thing I like doing more is talking about, sort of 8th edition, because that's more of a material thing. The old world videos are more a fun thing, I think, rather than actually hard to be the proper content, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say just that. I mean, it's a lot of fun to talk about the rumors and stuff, but we don't really have enough information to do some proper analysis on it. Yeah.
No, you can. I mean, a lot of it is just inference, but I prefer inferring from what we know rather than just people saying they have insider information about.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Which is, it's just that's just for me is a little bit annoying normally, because that insider information is wrong, and then normally it's just about who happens to be the closest to Games Workshop rather than actually talking about something sort of a bit sensibly. But
this latest old world release, I mean, I saw your video you did on it. It's definitely the most exciting one today, isn't it? Where they're actually talking about what some of the rules changes are going to be.
Yes, it's the most. Well, it's not that concrete, but I mean, there are things in there that are significant. Like, for example, it seems as though base to base is gone.
Yeah.
as a component, a key component of wargaming. And that, when you stop to think about it, that's quite big, really. It's, all sorts of reasons why, if the frontages, there's only an incentive for the frontage to kind of get bigger. And that, think about, like, say, a whole point of a Bretonnian lance. If I slam my lance into your dwarf warriors with their 10 wide frontage, part of the point of that is I'm stopping a lot of your guys fighting. Now, in the Brave New World, you're going to have all 30 attacks. So, in theory. So, I do think that the loss of base to base is quite significant. The other stuff they talked about, with things like wizards, for example, and they also talked about pushback mechanic as well, which is a little bit of a, harkening back to a third ed rule.
Yeah, but wasn't there a pass? My memory's a bit hazy, but wasn't there a pass rule where you could sort of lap around the enemy unit? So it's similar to that. I mean, you might not be having everybody. There must be a limit to it, right? Otherwise, you could just have a wall of warriors that stretches the end of the board and they all attack in every combat. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a limit to it somehow, but that mechanic used to exist in the past.
Lapping around used to exist. I don't know whether it existed in 7th edition or not, because I never played 7th, but it certainly existed in 6th.
Yeah, okay.
And that was a very important rule, actually.
Yeah.
Also, because obviously sometimes you had the lapping round dudes being charged by another unit, and then they had to sort of reset themselves. So yeah, there are some interesting rules. I mean, from the past that they could bring back. I say pushbacks is something that's quite realistic, and so they had that in 3rd ed.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they give you half a piece of information. They say, oh, there'll be pushbacks, but they don't really say, for example, even confirm whether we're actually going to be having units breaking and fleeing in the same way. Because, of course, in Age of Sigmar, you fail your bravery test or whatever it's called, you just lose another couple of guys and they just disappear, and it's said, oh, they've run away, rather than actually having the guys running away on the battlefield, which in Warhammer is a huge part of the game.
So, well, I mean, if you take the wording, I mean, I don't have the wording up here exactly, but it did say that they're adding the mechanic of pushback.
I think the more I read it, the more I become more confident that is the case. And I hope so. But at the end of the day, though, these rumors are, really just quite thin. And it's a shame they haven't kind of given us, a little bit more. And if this game is coming out in October, as is rumored, I don't really see why they haven't told us more than they already have.
Well, exactly, yeah. And they did specifically use the word simplified when talking about magic, which is interesting because, and I agree with what you said in your video, that people actually like the magic faith. They like the pool of dice and the fact that you've got, as you say, resources for dispelling and resources for casting. It's just some of the overpowered spells, isn't it?
I think that's the problem. I think that the 8th ed balance of the magic system, because of irresistible force and broken concentration, is a really nice little balance. And you have to really think very carefully about exactly how many dice you're going to throw at every spell. There are lots of calculations there. I mean, of course, you can just try and throw 6 dice at a thing and get it off, and you will win games with that. But you probably will also, there will be a limit on how well you'll do with that, without question, because none of the spells, even the Purple Sun, you get the spell off and win the game, except in certain situations. And there are some situations, as you would know as a dwarf player, when there is a flying wizard with Purple Sun, there are genuinely some. And he gets the right roll, of course. There are some occasions where your army will go. But those are really very, very rare. And I do think some spells are overpowered, but apart from tweaking those, I quite like the 8th edge system. You've got to have a resource to manage. It's going to be power cards, dice, mana points, whatever. If they don't have that, and it's just, I don't know, I roll 2d6 and then you roll 2d6 to stop me. It
makes it a bit bland, but I mean, are you really expecting a new game to be more complex than 8th edition?
That's why I was skeptical about the pushback, because if we have pushback and break test, that's actually adding a layer of complexity, which is well, given that they said they want the game to be modern, now as I don't know what modern means I don't know why Warhammer wasn't modern, apart from the fact that it obviously happened a long time ago, which is
it's not modern now, but was it modern at the time?
I don't know. Presumably, it's a vapid word. Everyone says they want this and that to be modern, and who would argue with that? It's just a completely pointless kind of term. And what is a modern game? Presumably, I think they must mean some form of simplification. I can't see what other kind of meaning that term would have. And maybe some of the slightly more nuanced kind of rules, for example, relating to, okay, so I charge you and you flee, and then I charge you with something else and you flee again, and you bounce around. And there are some slight nuances there that, are quite kind of important, especially with things like, closing the door and wheeling and that kind of stuff, which are quite a little bit more nuanced. Maybe that's what they mean, that they'll be more simplistic. I mean, in a way, I'm sure every time they simplify the rules, it's going to really annoy me. But the core thing, though, and I keep coming back to this, is that even though I quite like playing 8th Ed and I enjoy this quite small community and stuff, that there's a lot of people that I know and like, I do sort of feel in a sense that it would be better for the hobby overall. New supported game comes out, and what I sort of hope will happen is if this new edition turns out to be not that good, then maybe some of the old pros will keep playing 8th edition,
right?
Or 9th Age or something, or there'll be a sort of kind of a sort of a subgroup of people that play that smoke the high tar version, shall we say?
Exactly, yeah. But on a positive note, though, the pictures that they have in these pre-releases, it looks like Warhammer.
It does.
And there's nothing there that makes you think, oh, this doesn't look like the game that I play. There's no big hordes or big deep units, which is something I personally like. I'm probably in a minority there, but as long as it's infantry focused, right? I mean, there's obviously, as you say, there's been past editions of Warhammer where it's been about heroes and big monsters, or it's all been about cavalry. As long as it's infantry led, it should be a good game.
You've got to make infantry, as you say, I think, the most important troop type to try and make relevant, and that's what 8th edition did very well, because it gave infantry quite a big buff for a lot of things. Infantry felt important. I think in some 6th Ed games, infantry is important as well. In some other editions before that, infantry is not that useful compared to
cannon fodder.
Well, probably not literally cannon fodder, because cannon not that good against infantry, but point taken. They will be, but by stuff that has got, if you've not got steadfast and you've not got step up, then infantry does become a lot weaker. So I do agree that infantry is the most important thing they've got to get right. And they just got to retain that balance. But I agree that one particular picture that they released, which was a game in progress, it seemed, because it had some uneven ranks on it, it did look like Warhammer. And at the end of the day, even if the rules are modernized, whatever that means, it's still going to look like Warhammer on the table. And that's nice, in a way. But I do wonder, though, I want the new game to just be fantastic, and just want, I guess, to play that if I can. But my skepticometer has been growing, and that's partly just because I've got naturally more skeptical over time, and just naturally more wizened than them, generally kind of gimmerish.
And I think you're right. From Games Workshop's point of view, they obviously look at the people who still play the game and take our opinions into account. But as you say, for each one of us, there's another 10 people who aren't playing it at the moment.
Maybe 100. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the group of people who are playing it now will make more of the noise online than their numbers suggest. So they are a bit disproportionately important, but nonetheless, clearly it's a new constituency. Either people who have never played, that's going to be a big one, or people who played goodness knows how many years ago, or just bought the models years ago and never actually played.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Luke, should we put some of these pictures on the screen and talk about Derby? You've gone on for a bit of a tangent there, but
I know, but but given your opinions on some of these things, and you're one of the only other Warhammer people who is deliberately almost into Oldhammer. And that's there are Oldhammer people, but they usually aren't playing 8th edition. They're normally more miniature collectors, and perhaps they play the occasional 3rd Ed game. But Oldhammer is its thing. Okay, so this is Derby. So we should just explain for your viewers. So in Derby, 5-round tournament, straight win-loss games. You could draw, but it's unlikely. Only 100 victory points of difference, you win the game. There's no 20-0 scoring. It's all just about something small. And in the case of my army, Bretonians, I put quite a few small lances in my list for the following reason. Small lances aren't very good at beating big blocks, but they are very maneuverable and they can kill small things. And so with a lot of speed in the army, including Pegasus Knights and 2 flying paladins, it's got the ability to go, and the Green Knight, it's got the ability to assassinate vulnerable targets and then keep out of the way for the rest of the game. That's sort of the kind of philosophy behind the army. I ran a similar list to this at the last kind of Derby event, and I didn't win the event, but the list did do quite well. And so I wanted to bring an optimized version of this to this event, because I think the Bretonians are slightly advantaged by that win-loss kind of straight win-loss kind of mechanic. Now, this game, the first game here, was really a bit very heartbreaking for me. Now, my opponent here was Scott Seckold, who's a chap from the London group who, I've played quite a few times, a lovely guy. And I knew he was taking Alarielle Incarnate of Life because he told me before we knew we'd even been matched against each other. And I looked at the rules for Alarielle and I thought, I can take this. She's really good, don't get me wrong. But, a lot of this, I'm not that worried about life magic as a Bretonian, apart from Dwellers Below. But even then, everyone is worried about Dwellers Below. So, not particularly to me. I thought if I can just break the unit that Alarielle is in, I'll have her. I'll be on top of those elves in turn 2. Anyway, so what happens in this game? So he's got 20-way watchers that ignore my armor. It's purely a shooting army. The only thing that isn't shooting is 1 unit of Wild Riders. I get a few knight units behind that. He's toast. Now, the problem is the scenario, Blood and Glory. I hate this scenario with passion. This means that you have unit fortitude. You get a fortitude from your BSB, your standard bearers, and your general, worth 2. If you drop below breaking point, you automatically lose the game. It's over. I had 6 fortitude, I believe, in my army, or 7. I can't quite remember. So quite a lot. And I think Scott had maybe the same. So in the last Derby event that I played, I lost the game with this because my general failed to look out to a Skaven Warp Lightning Cannon that was firing through an Ice Shard Blizzard as well, just to add insult to injury. And I just auto lost the game, and that was in my turn 1. So I was kind of hoping that didn't happen again. And it did. So there you go. So what happened was Scott, he got the first turn, obviously, because I prayed, targeted my general's unit, 6 dice dwellers. I had 8 dispel dice to stop him as well, 8, because I channeled twice and double 6'd it. And then my general failed to look out, sir, and died. And that was kind of nearly the end of the game before I'd moved. Scott kept me alive by not picking off the only 2 knights that survived the dwellers, which he could have done easily because he had 20 ignore armor bow shots. And that was just sportsmanship on his behalf because it felt so ridiculous that I'd, as I say, lost the game before I had moved. And as for the rest of what happened in the game, I mean, in a sense, I knew Scott could kind of finish me off when he kind of wanted to. And so I did get 2 turns in, and, I killed a few things. We had some archers in a building as well, which are really problematic for Bretonians because you can't use any of your charge bonuses, have to get out your horse, all of the rest of it. And so, in a sense, the game was kind of sort of a bit of a non-kind of event, really, because I'd kind of lost in my first turn, which, of course, in a tournament where you've got to win all 5 rounds to win, means you've lost the tournament already. Yeah, that was, I think it's on the live stream, this, considering how pissed off I was about that time. I think I managed to keep the lid on my temper quite well, if I don't say. So I thought, oh God, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to be really moody. And I bitched about it about 3 times. I've bitched about 300 times afterwards, but during the game, only about 3 times. And Scott was really nice as well. He was just so the nicest guy. There's an art to not being pissed off when you lose. I'm less good at that. But there's also an art to being very magnanimous when you've won. That's lesser art, but it's still an art. He was excellent at that. Although Scott is also a great loser as well. I should hasten to add both things.
It's but it's harder to be more magnanimous when there's a big moment or a big dice roll and it goes your way. It's hard not to go, yeah,
I think you do that, and then you'd be nice after that.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Oh, of course you do. I mean, when when I've got you firing a cannon at my demon prince and I toss the dice in the air and I get a clutch 5-up ward save, of course I'm gonna.
Sure.
Or if you heroic killing blow like a man, of course you do. Those are that's what the game is, is kind of all about. But yeah.
So we'll go through your list in a bit more detail in the next game when we play each other. I've only just got this one pick for this game. As you said, it's on the live stream anyway.
I mean, to be honest, that in a sense is the game. My general's unit is the one
Yeah.
there in red, and it was destroyed by the dwellers and sort of shot off in turn one. It was blood and glory, so it was auto lose. So in a way, you know, as I say, that there wasn't really any movement in this game, or indeed, only one player really had a turn. So there you go. I think some stuff did happen, but you know, Scott was keeping me alive.
Yeah. Okay. So you're right. On the first turn, he didn't target the rest of that unit, which obviously would have ended it. But
Yes.
you got back into the game, I think.
A little bit. I think to some extent I did.
Because this is actually a good matchup for Bretonians, I think.
It's a great matchup for Bretonians. I agree. Had it, even with that start, had it not been Blood and Glory, I think I would have beaten him soundly.
Yeah, because
even 1,000 points of knights behind him is gone.
Yeah, yeah. Because you're the only person I've seen take an MSU Brett's list. Actually, I haven't seen anyone else take a list like this. And this is the list that Wood Elves fit, because you've got enough units to go after all of his little units.
Yeah.
And what can he do? He can't outrun you. Yeah.
He's 20 Way Watchers, but you know, they can only shoot off one unit per turn. And you've got two Pegadins have both got 2 up rerollable armor saves. Again, the Way Watchers have to go for them. They can't go for all of them. Pegasus Knights are awful for them because they Vanguard up 12. And if he doesn't shoot them off, he's facing a turn 1 charge when the Bretonians move. So he sort of has to kill your Pegasus Knights. And, you know, then obviously you push up with everything else. So it's, and then you've got Comet of Cassandora to boot, which is also awful for Wood Elves. Oh yeah, it's a really hard matchup for Wood Elves. I think had he not got Blood and Glory, I think it would have been very difficult for him to have won this game.
Sure. And of course, he went on to win the tournament, didn't he?
He did indeed go on to win the tournament as well.
But I think, I mean, as someone who plays, obviously I was playing my dwarves, I play a defensive army as well. I think quite often, psychologically, because you start killing your opponent on turn 1 and they start losing units or losing models, that kind of makes your opponent more likely to make mistakes, because they kind of feel like they're losing the game. And I suppose technically they are losing the game right from turn 1, even though, I mean here, look, like as you say, all he's got is a few units of archers and, you know, a couple of eagles and stuff. You could probably lose half your army and still go on to win the game.
Easily.
But it's the fact that you're losing half your army kind of makes you think, oh my God, I'm losing the game. I've got to start panicking a little bit. Or, you know what I mean? You might start making mistakes. So
it's I think also where there's sometimes time limits on rounds as well, because, you know, if you know, one army goes ahead quite a lot early, then the other one's got to kind of get back. And if you know you're going to get all 6 turns, that does slightly relax the player who comes back at the end a bit. But if you know the game might get, you know, stopped at say 4 turns or something, then it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was as I say, I do think it's none of those units are steadfast either. So I mean, you know, one combat round, and you know, as I say, they're gone. And he's got the Green Knight as well, who just appears behind him as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so absolutely, it's very difficult for the Wood Elves. I agree, and it's what one of the sort of lists that this Bretonian army is really, really strong against.
So just talk about my list quickly, because I've got this this photo here. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, I've taken all the metal dwarves out in force. 4 big blocks. Pretty much what I would say, you know, quite a themed army, and I've just got dwarf warriors and slayers. So I've got no longbeards or ironbreakers or hammerers or anything. Just sort of taking a classic dwarf list where I've got dwarf warriors, slayers, and war machines and gyrocopters. So yeah, I won't bother going into much more detail on that, but that was the list that I took. Lots of great weapons.
I think it's quite strong. I mean, the only thing is that it doesn't really have a super heavy combat punch to kind of you can absorb the charges, but there isn't a really nasty, you know, boot on the throat kind of counter charge. And I guess the dwarf warriors with great weapons are quite good.
Yeah, that's the most powerful unit. Yeah, the horde of warriors with great weapons. Yeah, the slayers obviously die quite quickly, but they're good. You can sort of throw it into anything nasty, and they've always got a chance of winning the fight, even if it's against a big monster or if it's against elite units or whatever. Anyway, my first matchup was against Joby's Empire. And he actually won the last tournament, the last GT that we played. And so it's happened to me a couple of times now where the person who wins the last tournament, I get matched up to them round one of the next tournament.
It looks like very similar or exactly the same list as well.
I think it was exactly the same list. Yeah. So just quickly, then he's got 5 Pistoliers there. He's got a captain on a Pegasus.
Yeah.
Steam tank at the back. You got a cannon with an engine, or cannon Hellblaster with an engineer. You got the big horde of halberdiers.
2 Hellblasters.
2 Hellblasters, yeah. Detachment of archers there. He had a mage on life magic, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was life magic, yeah. Got his BSB and so on. Can't remember now, the guy who gives him hatred. The
Archlector.
Archlector, that's the one, yeah. More Pistoliers. He's got knights at the back there.
Yep.
And the what they call demigriffs.
Yeah.
That's about it, really. I'm all just sort of castled up in the middle of the board like that. And it was quite bizarre at the beginning because basically he's trying to stay out of range of my guns. His Hellblasters have a range of 24. My organ guns have a range of 30.
Right.
So I'm deploying. I put my organ gun sort of out of range.
Yeah.
Of his lines, and then he puts it out of range of mine. So he puts his Hellblasters 31 inches away.
Right.
So all of our guns are out of range. He's got 2 cannons, one on the steam tank, one on the hill.
Exactly.
I've got a cannon and a grudge thrower. So
yeah.
It kind of comes down to who gets first turn and who cannons off the other cannons.
Yes, exactly.
It's always nasty when that happens because it's real sort of, what did the dice go? He got first turn, took out my cannon turn 1. Took out my grudge thrower turn 2 with the other cannon, and then I was on the back foot, and I basically had to go for it. As you can see, look, he's staying out of range with everything. He didn't want his Pistoliers to get too near to my Gyrocopters. Yeah, that's how it went. And basically, that's the last picture I've got there with me just deciding, okay, I've got to now scramble and try and get across the board. So,
did you manage to get the gyros into any of his war machines?
I did, yeah. So I think he maybe killed one of the gyrocopters with shooting. I got the other 2 into his war machines. But it was kind of too late by then. I think I killed 1 or 2 of the war machines. But then obviously he's got knights, and so he can just position the Pistoliers to sort of, control the board and then just get his knights, pick off my units one by one.
Yeah, I mean, the gyrocopter is also unlikely to break one of those war machines on the charge if it's in general range. So it's going to take a counter charge most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, and he had, he's got a detachment of archers. He's got an engineer. He's got other things at the back there that can sort of help out the war machines. Eventually, I think he got a double 6 dwellers below on the horde, and yeah, it was sort of all over by then. I didn't think at the time in for this Derby Deathmatch for Blood and Glory. Is it possible that if nobody gets the Blood and Glory, does it just go to VPs?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not an auto draw or anything.
No, it's not an auto. It's not an auto.
Okay. Draw. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, that was, I mean, I think it is, as you say, reasonably difficult for the dwarves. However, if you get first turn, I do think it's very possible because especially, did your gyros Vanguard?
They don't, no.
Oh, okay. It'd be even better if they Vanguard, because if they Vanguard, then he could lose his war machines if he doesn't shoot your gyros. Although the thing of the gyros, only got 2 attacks though, and so, however, I mean, looking at his lines, yeah, as I say, it is a little bit kind of dicey there in the sense that probably first turn probably wins that game. I think.
Yeah.
The Empire do have some push-up options, definitely, if they with the knights and the demis and the steam tank. But I mean, thing with like 6 dicing dwellers and stuff, I mean, it's not really going to work because I mean, if he just disables one of your combat blocks, and then if you can just try and not fight with it, if you don't commit that much, he's probably not going to finish it off.
Yeah, if I don't commit, yeah. I mean, he was pretty scared about getting the knights or the demigriffs too close to the dwarf blocks because he just thought they wouldn't win the fight.
No.
But obviously he's got that big horde in the middle, which that's where the points are.
Yeah, it's where the points are, but in a game like this, I mean, probably it's decided on, the war machines are kind of relevant here.
Yeah, true.
It's only 100 points each. Probably all the blocks survive the game, probably. And then it's just a question of, where the war machines go on the fringes. I imagine that the number of VPs scored by both sides was probably quite low in this game.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. But this is an example of why it's just kind of sometimes interesting playing in this win-loss draw thing, even though, as I don't agree with stopping the game with blood and glory. I think that if you get broken, you should have the chance to break your opponent back. And then, they can do it on fortitude remaining or VPs, because that just favors armies that shoot too much, in my opinion. Okay, so this is my turn, my game too, which is, of course, against Simon. Now, I'll just say what my list is because I didn't do that before.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got sort of left and right here. Here we go.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, there's the Green Knight there, who obviously is sort of off the board. There are 2 Pegadins in the list. One of them you can just see a little wing there poking out from behind that stone. One of them, that guy there, is the super nasty charge guy who's got extra attacks from virtue of knightly temper. The other one is he's got a flaming lance, but he's also got a 2-up rollable armor save. They're just super tanky, hard to take down. They're not as good as the Pegasi that Dark Elves and Empire have, which get 1-up armor saves. But hey, we haven't really invented proper armor in Bretonia, despite being the land of tin men. So there you go. The general is a prophetess who's there in that Red Knight unit. I don't like running prophetesses on horses traditionally, but they're not giving me a comp plus for taking a prophetess general on foot, which I'd say I don't like. But so it's in a sense probably a bit better to have her on horses in small units where the miscast doesn't hurt you. Characters, I've got a BSB who's there on the right of that blue unit. Quite fairly kitted out. The BSB has the Crown of Command, which I almost never take. This was important in this game. Again, because you can have +2 or -2 on the comp system in this, and you're not penalized. So I threw in a banner of discipline to give my prophetess general a leadership of 9 and the Crown of Command. So these are both items I wouldn't normally take with Bretonians because they are comped. Apart from that, it's all small units of knight errant, essentially. There's 1 unit of Knights of the Realm only in white. And then there are 8 Grail Knights, who are the dudes there in green, and a couple of trebuchets. There's no infantry at all. It's just purely a knight army. It's all designed for speed, apart from the trebuchet. Prophetess is running heavens. There's a beta wizard also running on beasts. And there are a couple of unicorns. With Bretonians, there aren't so many options on troop types. Mainly the option is, do you go with big blocks, which is what every player except me does, or do you try a bit of MSU? And then there are a few builds on your characters that are the main kind of differences. And that's mainly where you'll see the differences in Bretonian lists, because there aren't very many troop types with Bretonia.
I do think, just for the record, that the unicorns are a bit broken. The 16 points for immune to psychology, movement 10.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. They're clearly ridiculous.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, consider what your other thing you have in Bretonia is 75-point mounted yeomen, who are the worst fast cavalry in the game. They cost the same as Dark Riders. About that, they're a special choice. They're worse in every statistic. They are absolute garbage. The unicorns are clearly broken, but they did comp them. So they.
Okay, right.
Yeah, you get -1 for 2 of them. I mean, they're basically an auto include for Bretonians. It's really as simple as that.
So I mean, I've got quite a few pictures here. I'll just flick through them quickly. So obviously,
it's a lovely picture.
Yeah, the Bretonians advancing there, and the Green Knight really is there, isn't it? Because you sort of put him.
Green Knight, yours was the only game where the Green Knight came on at the first turn of asking, which can be, in a tournament where you might not get all your turns, that can be a big role for the Bretonians. That if the Green Knight comes on turn 1, but this battlefield didn't have very many natural pieces of terrain, and so the Green Knight couldn't get behind the dwarves on this occasion. And so, I think he is actually genuinely where he is. Oh, he is definitely, because you tried to artillery him and were successful, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think I killed him with the organ gun, or something like that.
You killed him with the grudge thrower.
The grudge thrower.
I look outside with him on a 4-up, which is quite good, actually. But you did manage to get him with the grudge thrower, although he did come back at the end of the game and saved his points.
That's my.
So from the Bretonian perspective, the difficulty with this army here is I think Bretonians generally deal with dwarves okay, but they do sometimes have a problem if there's stubborn in the army. The Slayers are unbreakable, but at the same time they do drop fast. But when your Lancers are smaller and you can't grind, it's a little bit more problematic, and the war machines will hurt you. If you've got flyers, as I did, then you can take the war machines out. The gyrocopters are a problem for the Bretonians as well, because they're excellent at chaff. And as in this shot here, I actually made really a quite silly mistake with one of these gyrocopters. That blue unit of knights there you can see in the center, I should have arranged them in a slightly different way to block what I knew Simon would do in his first turn, which was run up his gyrocopter. And the gyro got out of arc, and it managed to take off, admittedly with a lot of resistance from the second Treb's crew, both trebuchets, which meant that my trebs were a non-factor in this game, where they could have been quite powerful.
And I think you can see when you look at the dwarf army line from that photo. I think you had a sort of deployment advantage there, and that you're going for my weak flank, which is your right, my left.
I'm trying to take the dwarf warriors out. Absolutely.
I mean, obviously my horde on the left side there is the stronger flank.
Precisely.
You're sort of laying off it there. I mean, I was sort of thinking, well, I've got my organ guns in front. I'll put my slayers behind the organ guns, so that if you do go into those organ guns, you've then got to, you're going to get countercharged whatever happens.
Exactly.
But you've got so many. This is hard for dwarf, because you've got so many units. I can't shoot and chaff them all up. Some are going to hit my war machine, so there's not much I can do.
You've not got small arms fire as well, so the unicorns are really hard for you. Because you're not going to use a war machine to fire at a unicorn. It's a waste of resources. So the unicorns are really difficult for the dwarves. Little unit of 10 crossbowmen or something, then the unicorn is a lot less of a problem.
I mean, I do have small arms fire with the gyrocopters, so they can do a bombing run and things like that.
That's true, actually. A bombing run would take off a unicorn. Yep.
Yeah, I think I did that with one of the unicorns and not the other. Oh, no, in fact, that's what happened, isn't it? So he rolled a misfire, didn't he? And then he lost.
Oh, right. And that unicorn dicked around with you later as well.
Exactly.
Quite an insignificant moment there. Yes.
And then you got the 2 units simultaneously on the organ gun.
All right. Okay, so what I think this is an interesting situation. War machines obviously are on round bases or no bases. So frontages and who's fighting what can be a little bit confusing here. So clearly what I want to try and do here is overrun with the red unit into the Slayer unit. And I want then, I think this is what I probably did. The white unit probably doesn't overrun and then reforms to cut that dwarf warrior unit out from my flank of the red unit, because that red unit's actually quite a long bus. I think they might be able to see that flank if they go into the Slayers. You have to be careful here, Bretonians, and because if units hold and you get charged on the side, you can be in trouble. And that block was charged on the side later, as we'll come to.
Well, you did. You overrun with both units there.
Okay. Oh, I overran with both. That was a ballsy choice to overrun with the White Knights of the Realm. Having said that, it does stop the dwarves. I mean, even if I lose combat in your next turn, then you're still not going to be harming my main block, which is what I'm most afraid of. I'm not going to kill that. I'm not going to take that Slayer unit off in one turn. No way. It's going to be. I probably need that blue unit to come up there and help me out in a second round. Then probably I kill the Slayers. I think that's probably what happens.
I think so. Your Peg Knights went into the other organ gun. And then you fled when I countercharged it with the Slayers.
Did I get away from that?
Well, you didn't. So this is where we had a little disagreement. So I wanted to get my Slayers there into the flank of your White Knight unit.
Oh, right.
Remember?
Yes, exactly.
And then we had a sort of a bit of a conversation about whether that White Knight unit, whether they'd be in the flank or not. And I still maintain they were.
It's kind of I see. So it's tight.
Yeah, because they were like that.
Yeah.
And then obviously overrunning into the warriors, they wouldn't really be able to move over that far. You see what I mean?
Right. I see. Yes. I mean, of course, going back into the past and looking at that kind of picture, now that does actually become obvious. So the point, I see what you're saying here. So I think had they clearly, I think from the first image, would not be able to wheel as much as that. I think they might have been able to. They're probably one base, I think, to the left of where they would have been, or left where we are. So that then does mean the Slayers are then able to flank them. But you see, of course, by this time, You know, we've got the benefit there of a kind of a sort of an old image.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that does suggest that Simon is right about that. And so they probably would have then have had a flank charge. I think one inch to the left, then that's a flank. I think where it wasn't one, but it does make the difference.
So
that being said, I think had I known that at the time, I would have just obviously held with my Pegasus Knights and let you kill them, because they were positioned on the board where I was assuming I wasn't going to get a flank charge. Had I known I was taking a flank charge, you know, you've got the Pegasus Knights, which is significant.
Yeah, so they ended up just pursuing the Peg Knights and they caught them.
Oh, okay. So in a way, you know, there was some justice there. And also the Slayers, through killing the Peg Knights in that way, would have also got to reform as well.
Yeah, which you can see in that picture there.
I don't think you would have taken off the pegs in one round of attacks from the Slayers. You would have had to probably, I should, have held with those Pegasus Knights, because your Slayers aren't going to kill me. I'm probably going to get away from you if I run, and I can still rally. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, although the Slayers are still strength 6 on the charge, though.
Strength 6 on the charge. Oh, actually, okay. Yeah. Take that back. 10 attacks at strength 6 with hatred. And we must remember that Simon rolled the all pan army.
Yeah.
All right. So the spec, they probably do kill the Pegasus.
Yeah, and of course,
no hatred, no hatred, you don't.
Because you attack first anyway, and then so the Slayers you kill, I get extra attacks.
That's true. I think with hatred, you probably do kill the unit. I don't think you do without, but anyway, you did have hatred. Anyway, so this was what happened after this turn when I charge in. That's a pretty good swing there from the Bretonnians. You know, they killed a lot. So I then go wider on my frontage. That's partly to reduce the chance of a flank charge from myself, but it's also I leave a little space there on the side to make room for my Pegadon, who comes in next turn and obviously lets the Slayers have it with a nasty attack. And I think that probably takes the Slayers off.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And there's the other Pegadon there who's actually fighting the Warriors.
Okay, this is a lot more dicey for the Bretons. Again, I don't remember exactly when this was, but the Wormlance guy goes in, and then.
So this is a bit later now. So this is. We've moved out a turn, I think, here.
This is the close. So this is this looks very interesting for the dwarves. So the dwarf warriors are going into the flank here of that white knight unit. They're going to kill that unit, no question. I think the Pegasus probably runs off. And then also there's a charge here from the Slayers into the side of the knight block. Yeah. Now, of course, I knew this knight block had the crown of command. Right. And people would never expect Bretonnians to have the crown of command. That being said, it's pretty dicey because, yeah, sure, you might be able to charge those blocks with the knights, but then there's another unit of dwarf warriors coming in here. The Bretonnians have really bitten off a lot here. Mixing it with this is dicey, no question about that. Anyway, so eventually that Knight of the Realm unit was essentially whittled down to nothing. The Slayers with their death blows.
I think, that's the last picture I've got there.
Really hitting hard. And I had to pass a 9 rerollable. Might have changed the outcome of the game. I got it at the second attempt, needless to say. And I think that Dwarf Warrior block also got into the Knight of the Realm unit as well. And I just had, I believe, my BSB and my general still alive. So, the tricky stuff. Of course, had the game gone on, neither of myself and Simon are the fastest players in the world. Had the game gone on, then obviously I did have some other stuff that could have come in as well. Gyro Chaffstat, Grail Knight block, that Paladin at the back could have come round. Had this gone to 6 turns, I think this might have been quite close. Because I don't see what other points I would have got that I hadn't already got. I was quite a bit ahead by then, but so it might have been tight, I think.
I think it depends whether you want to finish off that Slayer unit or not. Because obviously you've got knights coming in that could finish off those Slayers, but then you're vulnerable to my warriors coming in afterwards.
Very vulnerable to the warriors. A lot of it is that BSB surviving. If she survives and she's stubborn 8 with a reroll, or stubborn 9 if the general's, or stubborn 8 with the reroll actually, then it's tricky. But I think she's got a 1-up armor save and 1 reroll. I think the dwarves wounded her once, as far as I'm aware. She was, not necessarily. I remember on the last turn, I was hoping that she wouldn't kill Slayers because I didn't want death blows against her. And I think she got 3 of them and got 3 death blows. And there was definitely at least 1 armor save I had to pass that was critical.
Yeah, it was a good game.
No, it was a good game. It was definitely a tight game.
So this is my game 3, which is Battle for the Pass.
Yeah.
and I'm up against Tom's Beastman. And he's got a lovely army here. So he's got a couple of Razor Gore on their own, a couple of chariots there, block of Minotaurs, no characters in the Minotaurs there, Ungor Raiders at the front, big block of Bestigor, and he had a level 4 on. Hold on, I've made some notes here. What did he have? Oh, he had Slug Tongue.
I've seen that. They're just like kills models at the beginning of the game or something.
Yeah, but only within 36 inch. And fortunately, on this scenario, I was able to deploy out.
Ah, okay. Yeah, like Slug Tongue doesn't like the pass.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't like the pass. So he had a level 2 on Death. He had a level 4 on Beasts. Was it Beasts? I think it was Beasts. I can't remember exactly now. And he had another level 2 on. Oh god, I can't remember. Or was it level 2 on Beast and level 4 on something else? It'll come back to me in a minute. There's another big block of Gore, another 5 Ungor, another 2 chariots like that. So I mean, that's the army.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm deployed quite far back, thinking, this is a good matchup for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, by the time he gets to me, he's not really going to have enough left to beat me in hand to hand. Even with my gyros, I didn't even bother rushing them up because those Ungor, I mean, they're kind of blocking his units as well. I thought, well, I'm not going to kill those Ungor Raiders because actually the unit that I want to kill that has his level 4 and his general in, so he had a Beast Lord, are all in that Bestigor unit in the middle. So that's how it looked just before the combat started, where you can see I've severely depleted his Bestigor there.
Yes.
And he made a little mistake where his Ungor have come onto that hill in front of those Minotaurs, and he's obviously trying to bait me into charging those Ungor.
Yeah.
And he can countercharge with the Minotaurs, but I still had a Gyrocopter waiting in the wings, so I charged the Ungor, they fled.
Yeah.
And then I just chaffed up his Minotaurs with the Gyrocopter, and of course, once they kill something, they're frenzied and they have this D6 overrun, which
they do exactly.
It's not good for them, and I was able to just hit them in the flank. He did charge his Bestigor unit into my Dwarf Warriors in the middle, but they held steadfast, and then the Slayers came in and finished them off. And then by that time it was the game went my way. So
yeah, it sounds like, I mean, in a sense, looking at the matchup, I guess I would have almost been, if I suppose it sounds like you actually got kind of quite involved in actually quite a lot of fighting. I would have almost been tempted to just, to try and destroy like just the chariots or something and go for like a kind of a skinny win because he's got no shooting.
no.
He does have some magic, that's true. But as it happened, I guess your organ gun was the main thing that probably mauled that Bestigor unit. And he's obviously trying to be quite kind of aggressive. I think the problem for the Beastmen here is quite simple, that even if they get the charges, I don't think that they're guaranteed to even necessarily win or to do that well. I think the Dwarven combat blocks are a match, to be honest. These Beast units, more than a match for them.
And that building was quite good, the way it was placed, because I think I had the organ gun in there.
Yeah.
Or actually, did I have the organ gun in there? I can't remember now. But his chariots on his left, at the bottom of this picture, were sort of there wasn't enough space for them to get in. To my units because that terrain piece was blocking them off. So,
but buildings can be very, very swingy, I think, in 8th edition. I mean, especially when I'm a cavalry army as Bretonnians. Buildings are absolute kryptonite for Bretonnians because you can't use your horses, you lose your armor, you can't lose your lance, you lose your devastating charge. There's not really much you can do about the building, and you don't. And even if you beat the enemy, they're stubborn in it. So anyway, but in this case, you had a war machine inside, which was handy.
Yeah.
This was my battle for the pass, which, Simon, was quite an easy matchup, I think, in many ways. So Orcs and Goblins are a good matchup for Bretonnians because the sort of random things they have, like Fanatics and Manglers, are terribly vulnerable to the Green Knight and Unicorns.
Oh, sure,
You can just take them off, really, especially the Green Knight. The Green Knight is really quite silly because he can just he can like trigger Fanatics, walk into a Mangler Squig all in the same turn. He doesn't have to stop. So I thought, okay, so he's got a big block of Savage Orcs with like loads of characters in. He's probably got the Crown of Command in it. I'm not going to fight that unit. There's a unit of a road of about 70 goblins or something. I'm not probably going to be fighting that. and he's just got loads of, single things. Like he does have 2 Doom Divers. He's got a catapult, and he's got Stotling Pump Wagon and some chariots and quite a few things. So he can hurt me in the magic phase. He also has the sort of big Gork's Warpath. And in every magic phase, his 6 dice is Gork's Warpath. And he gets it
Foot of Gork
every time. Foot of Gork. Oh, it used to be called Gork's Warpath in an early edition. He gets it every time. And so that does mean that quite a lot of my army does actually die on the way in. But I'm able to take I'm able to release the Fanatics with the Green Knight. I kill the Manglers with the Unicorns. And generally the kind of chariots I'm able to either kill with magic, or for example here, so he has a chariot here you can see on the far side. I put the Green Knight in front of it. He's got a goblin character in there, which means he can't damage the Green Knight. He could move out of the arc of the Green Knight, but you see the Pegadins coming in, and he can't escape from the Pegadin with his movement. And so there was a bit of hunting with some of these single targets. I also got an absolutely ridiculous comet off in this game. That's what killed so many of his things. I think I took off 4 different units with this comet. It was obscene. He lost, I think, 2 chariots and 2 war machines to it. It was an absolutely vicious piece of magic. That goblin road there, I fired up my trebs at that when there wasn't a lot left on the board, and both of them hit, and they killed 40 goblins between them in one round of shooting. And then I was able to finish the goblins off with a few knights, which I thought was quite funny.
They make a panic test.
They did. They were within general and BSB range
okay, yeah.
The orcs. But the orc unit, my opponent should have Phil, he was called, quite a new player. He should have pushed his orcs up. His orcs, especially given they had Crown of Command.
He didn't push them up?
No, he just they stayed there. And if they had pushed forwards, I would have had to have been a lot more cagey than I was.
So he was trying to just defend and shoot you.
He was. I mean, he did a lot of damage with his spell. My wizard went down a hole as well after, I think, turn 2. And that gave him a bit of a swing back, obviously, because she was also the general. But I was always, at least 400 points or so ahead. And so in a scenario like this, there wasn't much he could do, to finish off my units. And so I sort of felt that even though I think the actual margin, I think I was only about 500 points ahead by the end, I was always in a lot of control in the game, even when my general went down the hole.
I think it's just an example of a win-loss draw where you've just got to go for it, especially if you've got a big block of savages like that.
I think he has to, yes. I mean, in a sense, if you know the meta maybe a little more and you have some more experience, then you probably know that a Bretonnian sort of MSU army is not going to be really seriously challenging your infantry blocks. They're going to try and go for all of the other small things. So you need to use your infantry block to be aggressive, because it's kind of got a free pass in a way, because he's probably not going to try and attack it.
Yeah, and even the goblins, just march them up.
Oh, the goblins are absolutely a problem.
It's
not night unit not going to break that on the charge. Absolutely not. So they are quite good in that circumstance.
So I feel as well.
Yeah, I know, sure thing.
And this was obviously the what do you call it? Meeting engagement one.
And this is the same army that I fought in my game 3, and this is also your
my
your
game 4.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he's got quite a few of his stuff didn't turn up at the start of the game, because obviously meeting engagement on a roll of a 1.
Yes,
the units have to come on as reinforcements, and he's sort of decided to back off from. So his savages aren't there; they come on the left side of his army. So his savages come on sort of at the left of the night goblins there, and it was again a similar situation where he actually deployed his rock lobbers out of range of my rock lobber.
Okay.
This is a range of 60 inches, right? Because it's diagonal. You can deploy more than 60 inches away.
Yeah.
And so they're just miles away, I did manage to get one gyrocopter round the back there to attack them, but he kind of left some spider riders and a pump wagon and things like that to protect his war machines at the back. But he's playing a very defensive game, and against dwarves, I'm always gonna win the shooting war, just because my war machines are more accurate, And so the things that did get within range, I was able to shoot them off. Where are we? So
Did you get first turn?
did I get first turn? Actually, I can't remember now.
Hmm.
I can't remember now. But yeah, I mean, all my units stayed pretty much intact. I mean, that there is the end of the game.
Yeah.
And so those Slayers at the back of the board there have died. So I've only got 4 Slayers left in that unit on the right hand side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he almost got the points for those Slayers because he was hitting them with Doom Divers and stuff.
Yeah.
But nothing made it into combat. He killed my organ gun with a rock lobber shot.
Yeah.
But that's the only points he got really. He got an organ gun, he got a gyrocopter. Nothing made it into combat. He was very unlucky actually. Oh, I forgot to mention. So his savages were delayed, but his Black Orc wasn't. And he put his Black Orc with a unit of Forest Goblin Spider Riders just at the beginning.
Yes.
And then, of course, they fail their animosity, and the Black Orc kills all these spiders.
to stop the goblins squabbling, he kills
all of them, all 5. Right? He just
God, a hard taskmaster there.
Yeah, and then
then he has to panic maybe himself. No, that would be
no, he doesn't. No. But then the savages come on, and of course the orc can't move that turn because he's just killed the goblins. And then the savages fail their animosity, and the Black Orc isn't there with them. So he was really unlucky with that.
That is quite, yeah, that is really rather funny. I think though that it does also look reasonable for the dwarves for some of the same reasons the last game was. I mean, he has some shooting, but I don't think his combat blocks. I mean, I think the savages, if they get in because they've got a war boss in them and stuff, probably do win. But at the same time, I don't think it's massively kind of decisive, and you can kind of outshoot him.
Yeah,
and his spell, his gun spell,
anyway. Yeah,
his gun spell, which is that warp. Oh no, that is nasty against you actually because it's got like a template. So
so that I think he's got that on my Slayer unit there, and taken off quite a lot of them. But as you say, yeah, even if he does charge me with those savages, sure they win combat round 1, but I'm stubborn anyway, and I get hatred against him. I'm going to do a lot of wounds as well, and I'm not. There is a scenario in which the Orcs win this game, and that's if he deploys everything on the line, rushes forward as quickly as possible. Okay, I might kill the Manglers from shooting. I might shoot off one of the chariots, but he had pump wagons, he had Manglers, he had Squig Herd, he had Squig Hopper,
a couple of chariots as well.
Chariot, he had lots of stuff. I can't shoot all of it. I might shoot a few bits, and then some of it gets in, takes the war machines out, and then he just piles everything in. But he was quite cagey. He was quite defensive. So
yeah, I think he has to do well with magic also to kind of win this. I think if he gets the Gork foot off and he gets like some repeated splats on the dwarves, then that starts really depleting those kind of blocks. Because then as I say, he got that a lot against me, and my knights were almost down to very little. But in a sense, when there are only a few models left and you keep templating them, it becomes progressively less effective.
True, yeah.
So this was my game 4, which is against Chris Hale, a very lovely man. So it's Wood Elves again. So in a sense, now we get to test the kind of thesis of is, this Bretonnian list going to kick Wood Elf butt in a not Blood and Glory scenario. So this one is a little bit more of a balanced Wood Elf list than Scott's one was, in that he's got 2 units of Wild Riders, and he's also got a big dragon as well. And the dragon is there for Wood Elves to keep your opponent back, to countercharge stuff that gets near his shooting. Same as the Wild Riders, really.
Yeah.
He's also got a unit of Eternal Guard as well, which are kind of a sort of a stubborn block.
And does he have, is that a dairy milk chocolate bar at the back there?
It is, exactly. Although it wasn't on the board at the beginning of the game and was taken off it when he ate it. So there you go. So this game, I felt, he's a good player, but I felt pretty confident, I think, about the matchup here. Now, I didn't get one of my Pegadins, didn't come on the board at the beginning, and neither did one of my Trebuchets. I think he just one archer block didn't come on. So neither of us were massively inconvenienced with that, although me slightly more so than him. And yeah, I mean, he's got 10 Way Watchers in a building that you can see there on the left. Again, building's a problem for the Bretonians. Only 10 Way Watchers, though. Those Way Watchers were always going to be a terrible pain for me in this game because there wasn't really much I could do about them. But there were also only 10 of them, so there's only so much they could do. I fired every treb shot I could at the Way Watchers and not at the dragon because, they were the danger to me. The dragon sort of bunkered up at the beginning behind that kind of sort of dwarf runic furnace thing. And so I pushed my knights forwards. I got some quite good stuff, I think, there on the flank with that Pegasus knight in green. And he managed to get into some archers. And a kind of the Green Knight didn't come on, I think, for 2 turns or something. And I really needed this Green Knight. He made the decision when my knights started getting a bit closer to ram his dragon arc. I think this was probably a mistake on hindsight. It's easy to say with hindsight. This is a 7s dragon. But against cavalry, it's got no thunder stomp. And, you get a lot of attacks, with Bretonians. Also, he's quite near the Grail Knight unit. That's got strength 6 on the charge. It wounds the dragon on 5s rather than 6s. So I put both of those knight blocks into the dragon. The Grail Knights could only get 1 file in. And in the magic phase, my level 2 wizard miscasts with Wissen's wild form. And she takes off most of the unit. I don't think it's Wissen's wild form. It's another spell. But that I lose, I think, about 6 knights or something. It's a really dreadful miscast, one of those Bretonian nightmare miscasts that you avoid by having a prophetess on foot. But Repants, my battle standard bearer, I think hits and wounds all 4 times with her attacks and really just brings this dragon down. The Grail Knights finish him off. And so the dragon just drops before he swings. I then overrun forwards. The Grail Knights overrun, I think, by 11 inches, which was really a bit far. I thought if I get an 11 or 12, I might be in trouble here. And that's what happened. And then he puts the Eternal Guard into the Grail Knights in the next turn with a flank charge from the archers. This is a great move from my opponent here. They've got Harmonic on them, the Grail Knights, but with the flank charge, they win combat. They beat the Grail Knights, and I think they catch them.
Right.
So that's kind of quite big.
Because when I saw that, I thought, okay, you've charged your knights in, but then I thought, why would he, if you were going to charge him, it would be into the wood, right? The only reason he's coming out of that wood is if he can charge you.
Correct.
So, yeah.
I overran a lot and he got a big charge himself, which is, as I say, you should never, it's a cardinal sin to get charged with cavalry. So then by the end of what then happened was the Grail Knights did break. The Grail Knights did break. And as you can see, there's a reduced unit there of Knights of the Realm. He's also shooting with his Way Watchers, and he does manage to shoot off my level 4 wizard. But by this time, the 2 Pegadins have got in, and they're sort of the bit that kind of got away from his army. And there's a massive charge at the end of the Eternal Guard with the Pegadins and also all the Knight blocks. And I just do a lot of damage to them. And in the end, end up finishing off the unit. And that's, it was quite kind of in the balance there, I think, for a while. But also the Green Knight is mopping up archers on the fringes. And by that time, I've killed enough Way Watchers with the trebs to not be an issue. I lost a lot of models, and there were a lot of things down to like 1 or 2 models. And so it was a tight game, but I do feel it was kind of weighted slightly in favor of the Bretonians. I think once I got in there with, with the stuff, he was always kind of second favor. And I say I had a lot of speed around. Had my Green Knight come on earlier, I don't think I would have been as close as it was. But it was, it was a good game though.
Do you think that was him? So he just plonked his dragon in front of your lances like
Correct.
that? Do you think that was a big mistake then?
I think it might be because he's not. I think if he had done it in a way that had stopped my Grail Knights charging, I think his dragon might have. The problem is with it though, is he's taking a lot of fixed combat res there. I'm bringing 4 combat res in with that unit with the BSB, and I'm swinging with enough attacks that even if I'm rolling 6s, I'm probably going to wound him a couple of times. Maybe he's accepting that the dragon drops, and he tries to get in with those Wild Riders on the left. I managed to chaff them, I think, with the Green Knight. That's right. I turned my back to them with the Green Knight, daring them to charge, and also threatened some other stuff in his lines. So, there was a little sort of exchange of chaff and stuff here. And I think I had 1 piece less than if those Wild Riders get in, it's really problematic. The Wild Riders on the right, I think I gave that Knight unit to them, you can see there, and they overran and I managed to hit them in the flank with that Blue Knight unit. And that was a reasonable trade-off for me. But as I say, I think with the Wood Elves, I feel fairly confident with the Bretonnians most of the time. This army is a more difficult matchup to me than Scott's army was in the first round, though, because it's got some stuff that can charge me, but there's not blood and glory, and that's the main thing.
So yeah, and then I played Chris round 5.
You play it's the same chap, yeah.
So
and now this is a hard matchup for the dwarves.
Yeah. I mean, and I've played Chris a couple of times, and I've played this list that Chris has as well with a similar list from the dwarves.
He's got poisoned archers on everything. Poisoned archers don't work against knights very well, but they're great against war machines.
They're great against war machines. Yeah, that's the thing. And obviously this is the dawn attack where I don't get to deploy exactly where I want to deploy, and it was particularly annoying because I've got one unit of dwarf warriors, as you can see, is missing there. It's on the left flank.
Oh God!
Just away from everything else. With one gyrocopter or something like that. So yeah, most stuff I was able to put it quite central there. But I just thought, okay, look, I knew he had the moonstone thing where he can teleport his unit, and I thought to myself, okay, well, let's just keep my war machines back. He won't be able to shoot everything at them straight away, so they're more likely to survive in the first couple of turns. They can shoot what is in range rather than everything else. I'll put my dwarf blocks on the line, and I'll march the blocks forward, and then he'll have to decide whether he shoots my blocks or whether he shoots my war machines. And then hopefully I can charge with my blocks, in turn 3 or turn 4 or something. But, as you can see, he's got a lot of stuff that is really far back there.
Is that a unicorn on the board?
Yeah, he had a
that didn't feature in the game against me. He must have forgotten to put it on the board, I think. I can't remember it being there. Anyway, who knows?
All right. Was it not in the picture? He's got the... Oh, that's your unicorn. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No. Rubbish.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay, he's chaffing me with his unicorn. Fine.
Yeah.
No problem. I just forgot about it. Too many unicorns.
Yeah. So he's basically, for me, this scenario, so what I did with my war machines worked to a certain extent because they didn't die from the shooting. The cannon did because he just focused everything on that cannon.
Yeah.
The other war machines actually survived until the dragon got in, and that I couldn't kill the dragon. Basically, I got a good direct hit on it with the grudge thrower. I took, I think, 4 wounds off it.
Yeah.
But then it came close to my war machines. Let's see if I got a picture of it. Oh, so that was my warriors just positioned on the left.
Yeah.
No, then it goes into your game there. But yeah, basically the dragon came very close to my lines. I fired everything at it again, both the organ guns, the grudge thrower again, just couldn't get the last wound off it. And then eventually just got into my war machines and ate them all up.
Yeah, and then ate them in a row, because the dragon seems like a liability on setup. Your organ guns do need 6 to wound him, though, because he's a 7s dragon, so it's the cannon and the grudge thrower that are going to probably have to kill him.
Yeah. So, yeah, and once the dragon had got into the war machines, then he was able to just sort of deplete the slayers a bit with shooting and then charge them off with the wild riders. I did try and get the gyrocopters into play, but it was too late by then. He'd managed to take them off with shooting, and yeah, it's a tough matchup for the dwarves. I'm still thinking about how it's possible to win this game.
So I think what I would say, turn 1 would be the first thing.
Of course, yeah.
After you've got turn 1, so he's probably got some cover, so you're not going to be able to cannon his dragon. But you can shoot it with the stone thrower because, they kind of do true line of sight in this, so you can fire the stone thrower at it. And if you can somehow kill the dragon, then I think the Wood Elves have got to push forwards.
Yeah.
They're going to probably then kind of take off your war machines, though. That's the problem. And then maybe if you can get your gyros into some of the archer blocks, then maybe it starts to become more close. But I don't see how the warriors and the slayers are going to contribute to the game. I just don't see how that's really possible, because unless he fails a frenzy check on the wild riders or something, he shouldn't allow you to charge him, and he shouldn't charge you unless you've really got depleted.
Yeah, although I mean, I did have some opportunities. I did declare some charges. Obviously, I needed like 9s and 10s and things, but I was able to get the gyrocopters up on the right flank too. They came off the right flank in such a way that the gyrocopters declared charges on his archers in the top right there, and actually got in there. And once the gyrocopter charges in, he's only strength 3, so he needs 6s to wound me. And if I can get a wound off as well and a charge, and I actually broke one of those units of archers just with one gyrocopter.
He's still it depends where his general is, but he's still steadfast A. I agree. If he fails one, it's it's a bit more problematic, certainly.
Yeah. All right. So
yeah.
And then
I mean,
fine.
So with this game, so this was a game I genuinely felt quite sorry for my opponent in for a variety of reasons. The first reason was because a little bit like in Simon's game 5, Simon's army is a little bit it's not dependent on it, but it likes to all be close together. This Empire army is also a little bit like this as well. It really, really helps to have your general and your kind of VSB quite close. None of the units are super strong in and of themselves, and so being there, and also he's got a Luminarch and a Hurricanalium or whatever it's called, which is +1 to hit or a 6-up ward save within 12. So they are totally bubble-based things. And he has them on one side. And he's got his infantry block with all his characters in there on the left. So what I thought, and again, I tend to play Warhammer with Bretonnians slightly more risk-averse, more conservative kind of way. I thought, okay, look, I'll just let that unit of infantry stand there. And because it's got stubborn, because it's great saws, I won't fight it until I land some rocks on it. My trebuchets literally didn't hit in the whole game. They were the most inaccurate trebuchets you could imagine. And so they didn't really do this. So then I thought, then I'll push him because one rock on those great saws is 15 dead. Then you can start to push. But on the top of the board here, he's got some knights and he's got like a arch lector in there. But I know that if I can charge that unit, again, it's very breakable. It's not going to be stubborn, almost certainly. And so I think I can kill that. And the rest of what he's got, these little, like the Hurricanalium and etc., and these little units of crossbowmen, they're really not that much of a problem for me. So this was my deployment. I deliberately deploy out of the range of his Hellblaster and out of the range of his crossbows because I know I'm going second. And in his turn 1, he doesn't have a great time. I think he doesn't get much off. I think he gets a chain lightning off on my Peg Knights, doesn't kill them. And then the Peg Knights are an absolute menace to him throughout the game. They get into his little archer block on the right. They break that. He countercharges with the detachment. They break that as well. And then they go on to systematically murder the Hurricananium and the Luminarch and other things. I think they took off 5 units by the end of the game. They kept passing ward saves as well. It was really, really crazy. Now, I made a blunder with my Grow Knights and I put them in range of his Hellblaster, which is really silly. And they did a lot of damage with it. I have 5 Grow Knights left, and I see that he's left me a charge on that Knight unit with his Arch Lector in. They go for it. They don't actually break the Grow Knights. The Knights, the Inner Circle Knights, but they do some damage. And he does eventually manage to run them down, but the Grow Knights have done enough damage by then that they've reduced the unit to less than 5 rank and file models. And I was lying about my treb. Then I trebbed his general off because he had 1 too few model for a lookout, sir. I also get a big charge on the Demis off with one of the Pegadins. That actually doesn't go my way. The Demis managed to beat him anyway. But I also get, I think, a quite big charge off with that Blue Knight unit on the side of his Luminarch. And by this time, the Pegasus Knights are mixing it as well. He has some ignominious bad luck against the Unicorn. He just can't kill the damn thing. The Unicorn then eats his archers, eats his engineer. And when you're like losing combats to a Unicorn, it's not your day. It was like a bar of soap, this Unicorn. It just kept sliding out of the way and there was nothing he could do. And it was just, I felt, as I say, a bit sorry for him.
Does he have a long rifle there on one of his characters?
No, he doesn't. It's just the Hochland long rifle. But on the other side, eventually I do charge that greatsword unit with all of my knights. And they do just an absolute boatload of damage. I get all the buffs off. I absolutely massacre them. by this point as well, I'm just rolling so many sixes for the blessing of the lady that it's just really getting just very, very silly. And when his greatsword's thoroughly beaten, with a few lefts, holding out on stubborn with Ice Shard Blizzard, he's getting to the point where he's skipping to the end and just saying, I'm going to roll for the break test. And in the final dice of the game, he ran away and he said, right, just roll your 3 6s and then we'll call it. And then I rolled the 3 6s and then he was dead. And then I had to kind of prove that my dice weren't loaded. As I say, I rolled like fire in this game. And he killed one unicorn. He didn't kill the other unicorn. He's chasing around the bar of soap for the whole game. He didn't get to kill it. I kept wanting it to die to give him something, but then, of course, it kept passing its ward save. I think he ended up killing one unit of knights and the unicorn, but it wasn't really reflective of how the game went. So yeah, it was a really, really nasty one for them. But I do think it's a great matchup for the Bretonnians, and the fact that his army was split between two sides of the board meant that I just could ignore his great swords. And by the time I did charge them, it was kind of a bit of a leisure activity, really, because I kind of already won the game. And in the end, they absolutely murdered the great swords as well, just to kind of add insult to injury. But yeah, so it was one of those games where just literally, as I said, there was nothing he could do about the dice. Even if he had comprehensively outplayed me, I still think he would have had no hope against that dice-a-thon. So yeah, that ended me up with 4 wins from my 5 games.
Great, yeah.
The only one I didn't win was Blood and Glory. But I really, as I say, I really enjoyed my games. The first one was enjoy would be a different another word, character building, perhaps. If the same thing hadn't have happened in the last one as well, then it would have been. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think this tournament, I've got sort of mixed feelings about it. I mean, there's some of I prefer the 20-0 system generally, but also the scenarios, obviously, they play a big factor, and I just think that if you've got a more maneuverable army that can redeploy when you're not deployed in where you want to deploy, and if you're ahead on points, you can sort of get out of the way of their units and things like that and hold on to your points. I think it favors those sorts of armies, definitely.
There's a way of dwarves doing all right in this format, I think, which is to say, if you can just kill a few targets at the beginning with your war machines, then he kind of has to come and get you. I think obviously fast things is the problem always for those war machines. So I do think dwarves are not, I wouldn't say they were favored by it, but I think that they are reasonable. I think Bretonnians are favored without question, because you don't have to beat the really hard infantry blocks to win big, which is what Bretonnians struggle with. And it then means, of course, you can have all these little units and then fan out your resources and play in a more nuanced kind of way, rather than having to pack everything into single lances, which you kind of need to put power behind the blow if you're going to actually rout units, which I think forces the Bretonnians to play in a little bit more of a boring way, which is why I quite like having a sort of a system which slightly favors the MSU. And I do think Bretonnia MSU could absolutely win this tournament. I think they are a reasonable army to play, even though Bretonnians are not conventionally an army you would associate with MSU.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, 2 of my matchups as well, the Wood Elves and the Empire. If I'd got first turn on there and I'd taken out the cannon and had another round of shooting on that dragon, it could have easily gone a different way, the whole game.
I think all of the games are winnable for the Dwarves. I think the Bretonnians is the most difficult one for the Dwarves without any question. Because
it was MSU.
Your grudge thrower and your cannon are not. I mean, they're all right, but there aren't quite the high value targets that there are in other games. The organ gun's good, but they've got a lot of speed, and they're probably going to pick off more of you than you're going to do of them. As I say, had I been playing that game again against the Dwarves, I probably might have played a bit more conservatively, I think, than I did, because I think I actually got into a position where you could actually bring your infantry to bear against me. And I probably should have just stopped you doing that completely. So I think I ran quite a lot of risks by doing that. But anyway, there it is. All the games, as I say, I felt very competitive in all of them, except for the one where I didn't actually get to move any of my troops in because I lost already, which was sort of kind of its own experience, shall we say.
Yeah, and then Scott played a kind of a risky list in a way, a list that's always gonna do loads of damage turn 1, it's gonna do loads of damage turn 2, but really it's pretty fragile, and
think against certain. Yes, I think against something that's got quite high toughness and is quite fast, and has got a reasonable armor save. Like, for example, the Sevens Dragon, for example. That's really good against that. Because the Way Watchers, they still need 6s to wound it. He doesn't have much poison in the list.
Yeah.
I think something like a kind of chaos list I might run, which has got quite a lot of things in it that are very fast and compact and tough, which artillery is the answer to, and he doesn't have artillery. Yeah, then it's a problem. Also, breath weapons and stuff are horrible for Wood Elves as well.
Yeah, or even just a fast Orc and Goblin list with loads of units,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he'll pick off some stuff, but then they're just going to overwhelm him.
Yeah, I think anything that's kind of fast and has got that kind of, Bretonians are good as well. I mean, it is, but in a way, it's slightly a stick or twist kind of situation with this. A lot of Warhammer people talk about the dice that are thrown in the games, and that's very important, but it's also against the matchups. I mean, Simon with his dwarves, he's got quite a sort of an extreme army because all dwarves are quite extreme. They can do some things great and can't do other things. Bretonians are extreme as well, actually, in a different kind of way. If you get the right kind of matchups, you can actually win games, not easily exactly, but you will have an advantage. Whereas I think some of the armies that are more in the middle, they, like with my Chaos, for example, I feel as though I'm competitive in every game. Whereas sometimes with Bretonians, you look at it and you think, I'm in trouble there. Yeah. Ditto with the dwarves, I think that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah, but that's part of the nuance and the of the hobby, and that's why it's interesting, I think, with playing with quite some armies that are more extreme. Dwarves, no speed and no magic. With Bretonians, loads of speed. A book that's probably underpowered because it's 20 years old and not being able to do much about infantry and an infantry-focused meta, which is the primary difficulty. But nonetheless, there are quite a lot of ways around that, some of which are kind of gamey. But that's, sort of, again, part of the nuances.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for your time, Luke.
Not at all. Thoroughly enjoyed.
It's been a thoroughly enjoyable chat, as always. Glad we got to go through the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, as I said, looking forward to hopefully some more 8th edition events. I'd really like to win one. I've never won one, and I'd really like to. But I don't know how many more chances I'm going to have. But there we are.
There's still a few later this year, isn't it? I kind of feel like the season is sort of April to the tournament season is like April to July, and then and there's a couple more later in the year, isn't there? And then
the Warhammer season. There's definitely going to be another Cardiff one.
Yes.
So there'll be another opportunity to have a go again.
Yeah. And I guess we'll get planning our next event for next year.
Absolutely, yes, exactly.
We'll save that for another video.
Exactly.
Nice.
All right. Well, cheers, Simon.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. I'll speak to you soon.